Many of you sitting in the audience are disciples of Yogananda, and in fact, later this morning we're going to initiate some of you as disciples for the first time. Others of you, however, are here for various reasons and don't necessarily have that relationship. But even those of us who have a long-standing relationship with Yogananda as Guru, it always serves us to really try to understand more deeply what this relationship is about. Because it isn't just, oh, isn't he a wonderful master? Aren't we fortunate to be disciples? Oh, he has this great mission. Oh, he's come to change the world. There's many, many wonderful things that can be said, all of which are true. And in the right time, in the right place, that is what we should be focusing on. I was thinking this morning about just sort of how to express the purpose of a master's incarnation and our right relationship to him. A very odd example occurred to me. Recently, for a party we have every year for the members of our Sangha here, we celebrate our fellowship, those who help support us and have made a commitment to really this being their path. And just for fun, just to get to know each other better, as some of you know, we all turned in baby pictures, and we put the baby pictures up on boards, and we tried to guess who was who from looking at the very tiny new form. It turned out to be sort of difficult. You could look at the picture and be certain that you knew the person, but you couldn't quite conjure up the name in some cases. And then we projected the pictures on a big screen, and the adult person stood next to the baby picture, and then in almost every case it was so self-evident you didn't know how you could have missed it. I didn't submit my favorite picture of myself as a child, but it was something taken when I was 6 years old. And I am dressed, it's a black and white photo because it was a while ago, but I was dressed, I know, in a pink tutu that was trimmed in silver ribbon. You know, just a classic little ballet tutu. The picture in my mind of that photograph, which I remember, was that Margot Fontaine would have looked at me and wept at the grace, you know. The absolute just perfection of my stance and my whatever about being a dancer. I had that thought in my mind for 25 or 30 years of my life, and then going through my parents' old pictures, I found the picture. You know, it just had no relationship to the actual expression that I had outwardly, but it reminded me of everything. I shudder to think now how I must have danced. My first ballet teacher was named Miss Alethea Glimp, an unfortunate combination, which is why she had us call her Miss Alethea instead of Mrs. Glimp, as you could well imagine. This artistic experience took place in El Paso, Texas. So you can imagine Miss Alethea Glimp is running a ballet studio in El Paso, Texas. It's not really perhaps the apex of her childhood dream of ballet expression, but I remember so vividly being in class with Miss Alethea and having her, you know, just demonstrate all these ballet moves and how earnestly I would strive, you know, to be just half as good as Miss Alethea. And I have no idea where even the idea of becoming a ballet dancer came, whether it was my mother imposed on me or it came out of me, who knows. But the end point is I so vividly remember the fact that there was the example in front of me. And to my child eyes, it demonstrated what I longed for. I can look back on it now and probably imagine that Miss Alethea was not the most talented dancer in the world, but she was better than me. And she exemplified my aspiration. Interestingly, God playing games with me. In more recent years, we had for a time Andre and Cindy, whatever their last names were, Drager. Andre Reyes and Cindy Drager, and they were true ballet dancers. They used to be principal dancers with the San Francisco Ballet, and I sort of went back, and this was my investment in my next incarnation as a ballet dancer. And I took ballet classes from Andre, and Andre was indeed glorious. I took the classes, I must confess, because I thought it was a cheap ticket, you know, for a front row seat, for a great dancer. And, you know, when he would just, and whenever he would say, can you do it or do you need me to demonstrate it? Oh, Andre, I need you to demonstrate it. Because, you know, I can just the way he would move his hand across like that. It just exemplified, the whole essence of what dance can be about. Now, I have a passion for theater and things like that, but ballet dancing is lovely, but ballet dancing comes and goes. What we're really longing for, even in the beauty of the dancer, even as a child, we're longing for this inner sense of perfect beauty, of perfect grace, of perfect freedom in our own bodies, of hearing beautiful music and having it just move right through us and be just one with those melodies. All of those things in the material world, we paste some form on them. But what they're really all about is this inner awareness that we were made for something magnificent. That this little world that we live in, as beautiful as it can be at times, is still just a shadow of what we were really made for. And we wander about this planet trying to find a way to paste that feeling onto something. And it was a great perplexity, increasing tension in my childhood and early adulthood, until I found this path. Because the longing was so much bigger than any reality people could offer me to express it. You could do this, you could do that, and I would sort of look at it and think to myself, oh, please, no. And I didn't know how to pray, I didn't know about God, so it was all more in the negative than in the positive. But what I feel and what's being offered to me, there's no match. But you see, every so often, one of these great souls, these perfect dancers in divine bliss, walks through this planet. Greater can no love be than this, from a life of infinite joy and freedom in God, willingly to embrace limitation, pain, and death for the salvation of mankind. Such ever has been the sacrifice of the great masters for the world. Because a great master is the culmination of our own potential. This is the great secret that self-realization presents us. Even though you see in the life and you sense in the consciousness and you receive in the vibration of these self-realized masters something that seems so much more than what we are right now, they are in fact the realized potential. Just as Andre Reyes is a great ballet dancer because he practiced a lot more than I did. I quit my lessons, and even when I had them, I didn't work very hard, but he did not. There's a wonderful story told about a great violinist who played so magnificently that someone after him with appreciation and envy said, oh, I'd give my life to be able to play like that. Very matter-of-factly, the violinist said, I have. That's how I play like this. I gave my life to it. So the great masters, out of love for us, this is what was being read to us from Master's poem, God's Boatman. Master writes in that poem, I will return 1,000,000,000 times if necessary, crossing crags of suffering with bleeding feet. He says, as long as one stray brother is left behind. Such compassion. You see, I admire the way Andre moves his hand. But think of that compassion. Each of us, we have this little bit of kindness. We see a homeless person, we're a little concerned about them. We see a friend is suffering, we put an arm around them. We see someone who has ill health and we bring them soup. We feel in our hearts, oh, if only I could help you. And we find the restlessness created by that desire to help and the satisfaction of being able to step forward and do something. Multiply that 1,000,000 trillion times. Because all these little bits of suffering that we have, oh, they seem quite enough for us. I don't mean in any way to belittle them. God pushes us right to the absolute edge. The word crucifixion doesn't always just mean being nailed to a cross. Sometimes it means all the daily trials and troubles that we have. It's enough. And we want to alleviate that in one another, but imagine, just imagine what it might feel like to hold in your hand, as the Master does, the key to the end of all suffering. And even more, it's a key that belongs to every single individual. It's not like just this one person has a great talent for the violin. I'm a master teacher. I'll make him a master musician just like me. The self-realized masters look out, and they don't see what we see. We see all of ourselves and all these sort of lumpy changes that we all are, these little forms. Master said once, if you could see yourselves as I see you, you would realize that you are nothing but light, perfect light. And all the little bits of aspiration and inspiration and the ambition and hope that we have 1,000,000 times, that's what the Master feels. And he holds the key. And to take on a physical body, we take on our physical bodies. Jesus used the phrase, forever misunderstood. I alone, he said, was born without sin. So the theology of that has become, well, then the rest of us, I guess, are hopeless sinners. What he actually meant was, he alone was born without karma. He didn't have a reason for being born. From a life of infinite joy and freedom in God, willingly to embrace this limitation. The rest of us have come here not entirely willing, but compelled by our desires, compelled by our misunderstandings, compelled also by our aspiration. But also we have to be here because we have unlearned lessons. But the Master comes for no reason at all. He goes, it's like joining a combat unit in war. It's like entering a prison without having committed a crime, without having been drafted into the army, entering into an environment that is less than ideal, but only for one reason, because one stray brother has been left behind. Now, what does this mean to us? What this means to us is, why do we ever worry about anything? It's just a very simple question which I ask myself really often. Why do I ever worry about anything? Into this world have come, will come, walking among us now, great saints, great masters, those who have given their lives for the only thing that we really desire, and more even than their accomplishment, their hands are open and they are streaming out upon us the key to attaining everything that our heart desires. And all our little worries and all our little anxieties and all our ups and downs, intensely real as they are to us, are just the means through which those masters will reach us. And it's not always easy. That's why Master says, I will weep through my eyes and perchance also through yours. Many of the tears that we shed when we move outside of that bliss for whatever reason and find ourselves stranded on whatever island we find ourselves because of our karma. But he is always with us. Before Master left this world, Swami Kriyananda, who was there with him in those last days, said, Sir, when you are gone, will you be as close to us as you are now? And Master looked at him and he said, to those who think me near, I will be near. And so he writes to us, when I am only a dream, seek the one beloved, seek God, because that's where I live. And when we move our consciousness in the direction of the Master's divine home, we find him flinging the door open and inviting us in to stay. What joy.